To make the ferns, you're going to need the freeset diamond paste fern cutters and the medium diamond paste fern veiner. Roll your flower paste out thin over one of the cells in your cell board. Using the smallest of the cutters, you will need to cut 6 of these leaves. You're going to need 7 of the medium leaf cutter and 4 of the largest. Now using the smallest cutter, line it up with a channel, press down and rub on your board, pull your flower paste away, leaving the paste in the cutter, rub the back of the cutter with your finger or your thumb and make sure you've got a really clean cut. Use something to poke out the paste with. Using your small cutter again, using the remainder of the rolled out flower paste, line it up in the channel and cut another leaf. Cutting 2 leaves in the one channel is going to save you a lot of time if you're making heaps of fern. Make sure your cut's clean again and press it out. Now using a short piece of 33 gauge wire, dip it into some sugar glue, wipe the excess off on the back of your hand. Using your finger and your thumb, guide the wire through the channel. It only needs to go probably halfway through. Dust your veiner. Now you need to make sure that your cut out leaf runs central to the veiner. Also, you're going to need to use the finest part of your veiner, which is the top end for the small leaves. Now, because we don't use a ball tool to thin out the edges of these leaves, you want to make sure you give them a really firm press down to thin the edges. Now when you set these aside to dry, you want to make sure you've got free leaning down to the left and free leaning down to the right. Now you need to cut vein and wire another 5 of the small leaves. Once they're all done, you need to knead some more flower paste till it's warm and stretchy. Again, roll it out really thin on the groove on your cell board. This time we're going to cut the 7 of the medium leaves. And if you position your cutter, you'll still be able to get 2 cuts, 2 leaves out of a one groove. Just like the small cutters, make sure you rub the back of the cutter to get a really good clean cut. Poke them out. And still using 33 gauge wire and a tiny bit of sugar glue, feed the wire through. Again, it only needs to go through a third to half of the way. Dust your veiner again and make sure from the tip to the bottom of your cutout leaf is running along the central vein of your veiner. Fold it over and press down very firmly. Just like the smaller ones, you need to make sure that you have free drooping to the right and free drooping down to the left. Your centre one is up to you. You can have it going straight up or have it drooping to one side. Need your flower paste again. And roll out along the channel on your cell board. Now using the larger veiner, cut out 4 of your petals. Make sure you've got a nice clean cut. And keep going till you have 4 of the large leaves. This time you're going to use 28 gauge wire and using a small amount of sugar glue, feed them through so it's halfway through to the leaf, halfway through the leaf. Make sure your veiner is really well dusted so the cut out leaves don't get stuck. And line it up perfectly with your veiner again. Press down really hard and do this for all 4 of your leaves. Make sure when you dry again 2 leaning down to one side and 2 leaning down the other way. Now it's up to you how you go about dusting your fern. Now I did mine when they were all taped together, but breakage is a concern. So for the tutorial purpose only, I've actually dusted mine this time before I have taped them together. So I've used a combination of Crafty Colours Hunter, the Squire's High Strength Professional Leaf Green colour, and Crafty Colours Crafty Colours Kiwi. Now mixing a bit of the leaf green and the hunter together, really gently dust your leaf. Now it's probably a good idea to actually put your finger underneath the leaf to give it support if you are worried about breakage. Turn it over and do exactly the same. Now using some Sugar Flare Burgundy and Edible Art Dusky Rose, you're going to highlight the pink on the edge of each fern frond. Now taking a thin flat paintbrush, you're going to highlight the central vein on the leaf. Now if you find that the dust goes off the vein and actually onto the leaf itself, it doesn't matter because we're going to over dust with green later to soften the burgundy out. Now going back to your bigger paintbrush, pick up a bit of the burgundy and dusky rose and highlight some edges. Now I've done each leaf exactly the same technique, but try and keep the burgundy colour so it's not uniform. You don't want the same burgundy highlights, exactly the same placing on every leaf. On some of the leaves you can darken the point with concentrated burgundy or a small portion of the edge of a leaf. Just keep your leaves looking so they're not uniform. Now once you've added all the burgundy you want in your leaf, pick up a very small amount of green and just slightly over dust so you blend the pink and the green in together. Flip your leaf over, and where you've added the burgundy on the front side, add the burgundy in the same place on the back side. You can make it slightly darker or lighter if you like on the underside of the leaf, but you want the markings in the same places. Finished, pick up the green again and just blend the colours in together. Now you're going to dust the whole 19 leaves of exactly the same technique, but remember, don't make them uniform. Okay, now we're going to start taping our fern together. Now the rest of my leaves aren't actually dusted because I'm only doing this fern for the tutorial. So let's just pretend that they're all dusted. We're going to use a half width florist tape and a half length piece of 24 gauge florist wire. We're going to break off a piece of florist tape that's about 7 inches or 20 centimetres long. Slightly stretch the end of it so it makes it a bit tacky. And now we're going to grab the medium size leaf and just start your florist tape on the wire. So just wrap it around probably just once, just enough so it's tacked off and stuck on the wire. Now place your leaf so the wire's right up underneath the bottom of the leaf. Now when you wrap your tape around, you really have to be careful not to touch the bottom, like to bump the bottom of your fern with the tape or your fingers. Stretching and wrapping your tape at the same time, wrap it round probably 2 or 3 times. Okay, now carefully put that to the side, and we're going to grab your 6 of the small leaves. You need 3 for one side and 3 for the other side, so make sure you pick up 3 that are drooping down one way and 3 that are drooping the other way. You're going to bend them so they go into a slight L. So you want 3 bent one way and then 3 bent in the opposite direction. And I'm sorry, apparently I've gone off camera with this part, but you can see the bend when I put them back down. Now you really do need to be careful when you bend these. If you find that you are breaking them, then perhaps just grab a pair of pliers and bend them with a pair of pliers. Now your first 2 of your smaller leaves slightly overlap the top middle medium leaf. So make sure you're taking your tape down far enough that your tape will go straight up snug underneath the small leaf. Being really careful where your hands are on your tape is that you don't make breakage. Wrap it round once. and then take your leaf that faces in the opposite direction. Tape it into place. Again, wrap it around probably 2-3 times. You want a slight gap in the wire between the leaf that you've just placed and the leaf we're about to put on. I strongly suggest that you adjust your leaves in the position that you need them as you go. So if you have any breakage, it's no big deal just to unravel a couple of times and replace that leaf rather than getting all the way to the bottom, adjust your leaves and then start getting some breakage. Put your leaf on and make sure your next leaf on and make sure you've got a slight gap between the top leaf and the leaf you're about to place. If you haven't, take that leaf back off and wrap your tape around a few more times. Tape your left one into place, making sure the tape's right up under the bend in the wire. Again, wrap it around once and then tape in the right side. Keep wrapping the tape around and continue it down until you'll have about the same size gap that you had in between the last 2 rows. Adjust that row and still using the small leaves, tape in your next left and right leaf. Wrap your tape around again. This time your gap's probably going to be about double what you had. Put the medium sized leaf on when you think you've got the right size gap, and you really need to make sure that the next leaf, the medium sized leaf, is not overlapping your smaller leaf. Just like we did for the small leaves with the medium ones, you need to make sure you have free bent to the left and free bent down to the right. Tape on your medium left side leaf, wrap it round once, and then put on your medium right side leaf. And keep wrapping your tape down till you have a slightly larger gap than the one we just had. Add the next row. Then add the last row of your medium petals. Now we're going to extend our wire, so taking a third length piece of 22 gauge wire, put it at the end of your fern and just tape it into place. You only need to wrap it around 4 or 5 times until that length is firmly held in place. Now taking your 4 large leaves, bend in the same way as we have done before. Just make sure your gap's big enough that the large and the previous medium row don't overlap. And in the same way as we have done before, tape your next 4 leaves in place, your next 2 rows. Now continue your taping down to the end of the wires. If you find that your length of tape is not long enough, just break off another piece and add it on. Congratulations, you've just finished your first piece of vine.